Greetings and welcome everyone. Now, the question comes up about inch force, the 1 inch punch, how to develop this. First, mechanically, I like to take everything as a mechanical approach first from the body and then internalize it. And the mechanical model that you use should be appropriate for internalizing. So, as most of you know, force is mass times acceleration. So you have to connect as much mass as you can and accelerate it to generate force. So your training model has to be, how do I connect mass and how do I accelerate it? It's pretty straightforward. The most efficient way to do that is by making more fascia connections in your body so you can move more mass, so you can connect more mass. When you contract a muscle to throw a punch in a traditional sense, that punch, if you're compressing the body, loading the body and unloading the body, there's a tendency for isolation of mass. The line of power, everything contracts into that line of power and the mass isolates itself. And you can measure this very easily just by putting a set of bathroom scales on the wall and then putting a punch on it and then driving your punch into it. Not much of your mass is actually going to be there. But if you put your knuckles on that set of scales and then relax and drop your body weight and spread and just open your joints and connect your mass through stretching through the bathroom scales with a stretch, you'll get a better measurement on those scales. You get more connected mass. So this relaxed stretch, you can instantly measure, if I contract a muscle, I get less mass. If I stretch and open my space, relax and stretch everything through the scales, not at, but through, you get more connected mass. And this is an essential measuring tool, but also an essential training tool. So if, let's say I did Wing Chun for a long time, and one of my favorite strikes was a palm strike, straight up underneath the chin. Nice, simple, and effective. And I want to connect as much mass to that as possible. Now I use this one as an example because when people use a Wing Chun method to do a palm, it's actually quite weak. If you put a palm on the bathroom scales and the central line and the elbows in and you try and push, people get 5 kilos, 10 kilos max. And they're not going to get much pressure on there at all. It's actually quite a weak strike the way it's traditionally done. So how do we get this strike really powerful? Now this same training model will apply to no matter what method you're training. It'll apply to all the different methods. All right, so the first one we're going to do is we're going to put a hand out to the side. We want the palm strike to finish here, and we're going to practice throwing. So we're going to drive the hip, same as if we're going to drive a punch or drive a palm, but we're going to move at this angle and use a throwing action, like we're skimming a rock on the water. So from here, we sink and throw the palm in. We're going from out on this angle, across into here. 1 and in. Do 9 of them, get your shoulder nice and warm. Now you pull it in a little bit more, instead of having it all the way out there, draw it in and back to here, change the angle, your same finishing position. Then take the hand further out but extend it more on the diagonal and throw 9 times. Then from in here, throw 9 times. Then from more on a instead of diagonal, halfway between the target and the 45, bring it in, 22.5, and then practice throwing from there. Load it in using these different curves, another 9, until you've gone from throwing from way back here, in tight, out there, all these different angles, finishing in the same place. Now what happens when you do this throwing action over and over, you end up with your hand in the striking position and you just simply vibrate to inch force and connect all that fascial web you did from all these big throwing actions. You're making the throwing action smaller, 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 smaller until the energy just comes in and vibrates nice and cleanly at the point of contact. So your finishing result is touch and vibrate, touch and vibrate. You throw in a very, very short 1 inch distance. So this gives you your mechanical framework of connecting the fascia. It gives you your elastic throwing power, moving your mass through the fascia from a big space, moving your mass in a small space. And then each day that you practice this, you go on the bathroom scales and you just do a daily relax and think, stretch, 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 whatever posture you want. This is just for one strike on the online training. We cover a whole range of different approaches, but this is just for this one particular throwing exercise. We do 10 throwing exercises. This is to generate power on this one particular line. You'd obviously want to do as many different forms of connection to amplify power in this one. Now, once you've been doing the throwing exercises for a few weeks, daily self-check how much more connected mass you're getting each day. Chart it, put it in front of you, and go, okay, today I've got 10 kilos, and 11, and 12, and 15, and 20, and so forth. And you get the scale going up. That's really important because measuring the connected mass means that you're getting more fascia connections. Now, as you sink and stretch, you can stretch more of your mass there. To stretch mass onto your hand needs fascia connections. So it tells you, it signals to you, this throwing exercise I'm doing is connecting fascia, and I can measure it on the bathroom scales. Now, the next part of the exercise is to stand a person in front of you, and then you stand on a diagonal. So they're diagonally to you. You put your hand on their shoulder, so now they're facing that way diagonally, touch their base, and just slowly connect the fascia under their feet and pop them up. You're bringing them up across so that their line, this way they would get a pop that way, and then you start digging them out with elasticity and popping them on this diagonal line. And the way you deliver the force with inch force is really, really important. You don't just throw it randomly. You hit the base and you bring the feet and energy off the base to measure the connection and the mind inside their space to deliver the force. So you have part A, training the force itself, the throwing exercises, the bathroom scales, measuring, the stretching through the scales, measuring mass, and then the speed of the throw gets faster and faster and faster. You measure the sound, how loud the cutting sound is, the popping of the joints, the humming of the fascia, and then the deeper groaning sound of the fascia opening and moving. As you do this, you're going to find that this light looks like it's putting off a weird blue color. Sorry about that, but oh well, this is the joys of lights. If you find that you're getting aching shoulders and aching muscles, just your normal Thai boxing liniment into those muscles, give it a rub down and make sure you're really warm before you do any throwing. This isn't an exercise you want to be doing first thing in the morning. If you're doing this first thing in the morning, the chance of injury is much higher. The elasticity of the body takes more time to warm up than the muscles. The muscles warm relatively quick and the elastics don't have as much fluid in them, so give them more time to warm up. Doing a bit of trampolining or skipping or something like that beforehand will get you really, really warm. Now, I'm leaving out the components of like building the ball before the throwing, because I designed this for not only the internalists who will go vital, breathe, and then throw, also for boxers and Muay Thai people and MMA people who want to get more striking power, but are not particularly interested in Qigong. So you remove the word Qi and you place the word relaxation. Mind moves relaxation, relaxation produces stretch, stretch releases, and you release the stretch. Now, the more different variations of ways of throwing from low to high, high to low, side, and so forth into your striking zone, the more connections you're going to get and the more they're going to rise. So even though you're training, in this case, one palm strike to the jaw, by doing a whole range of different types of strikes and getting them all connected, you end up with more connections for each one of those strikes through the crossing over and the balancing of all these different parts of the body. Okay, so we have the throwing exercises, the bathroom scales, backwards and forwards between them. When you're on the bathroom scales and touch and stretch, keep your stretch for a good 3 to 10 seconds. Really power stretch it through and get that measurement nice and stable. If you're looking at more for heavier endurance type work, you might do 1 minute stretches, really powering it up. But you'll have a lower peak if you do that. But you'll have deeper feeling of connectivity through your body if it's a longer period. And they'll cross over and help each other. Demonstrating this training with a partner, shoulder, and then popping your partner's base through the shoulder on the diagonal, touch the feet, sink under their feet, and dig them out. What this means is your body and mind and energy is stretching below their base, and this load on your hand is going to create a nice counter force because you're more deeply connected than them. Now, if let's say your training partner wants to go into rebounding in the next stage to build this connection, they're going to take their body weight and press it down onto your palms. So you put both palms there initially. One hand is just listening and balancing, and then this hand is doing the issues. As they feed, you drive down underneath their base, take their body weight, and do your throwing exercise, and give them a bounce. That one is only supporting listening. Most of the energy goes through your striking hand, and then do both sides, of course. Now, as you do the rebounding exercise and the person drives their weight, they lift their weight up, and they put it on your palm, feel your base, and they drive their body weight through your hand into your base. As they do that, and you relax and stretch that force out and through them, and you bounce them, you're taking their full body weight. Now, there's a sensitivity in your partner to knowing how much weight you can take through your shoulder. And that's why this other hand is there, just to stabilize and balance while you do the exercise. So now, as you do this exercise, you're going to find a few things happening. The way the feet are top heavy comes down on you, the more active they are in their feed, the more stretch they use, the more internally reactive it will be to your stretch. Like they're an elastic band hitting your elastic band, and they react together to bounce your partner. This elastic resonance between you and your partner means that you'll have less muscle contraction. Now, if they're dead weighted and they're just dropping a sack of potatoes on you, and you're stretching under the sack of potatoes, when it reaches peak, what happens is your muscles jump in and start activating, contracting to back up the needed strength. So the tendency will be that you're going to be using a lot more mass, a lot more muscle to compensate for dead weight. If they're elastic, you'll use elastic to interact with it. This is really, really important. As you develop your understanding of how to use your elasticity and your partner to feed their elasticity to be in resonance to build more elasticity, you'll get a faster growth rate. So a dead-weighted partner who's hanging on you or hanging the back leg and sort of dropping dead weight on you and just leaving all this dead, that's no good. They've got to bring this weight up to their chest and drive it down so that you're receiving pure elastic weight coming into you, and they're not coming underneath you at all. And this is really important to get the benefit. Remember, they're a weight for you to train strength training on, and they've got to bring that weight up, over, and onto you in an elastic way to benefit. All right, so any questions about developing 1-inch force, let me know. These three exercises, these 3 steps, the throwing, the bathroom scales, and the feeding into the strike, you can be very creative. We do 10 throwing methods, and then we do them for methods of loosening, for flowing, for torquing power, for speed, for connected mass. So there's a whole range of different ways of throwing. But for this video, for YouTube, so we'll just stick with those basic methods for developing connected mass and elasticity in your body. Thanks for your time. See you in the next video.